Welcome to another Liminal podcast, musings and conversations about personal and interpersonal growth and transformation, brought to you by Liminal Transformational Coaching, and I am Burgert. And this podcast is part two in a series about making friends with anxiety. And it's a podcast I'm recording with Bakkes. I suggest that you listen to part one before you listen to this one, because part one was the introduction, and there Anne shared a whole story about how she became really familiar with the topic of anxiety. And today's topic is judgment and how it relates to anxiety. And then the next one, part three, will be about love, and then we're going to do one about gratitude, and then the next one will be on belief systems and behavior, and the last one is going to be about the body, your body and emotions. And then after we've done this series, we're going to do a live event, a workshop. That's going to be somewhere in the Western Cape in South Africa. But for those of you who can't make it to South Africa, we're also going to do an online event. So stay tuned to this podcast for more information about that. And also, if you want to listen to the other podcasts or episodes, just go to liminalcoaching.com. And there you can also read more about my coaching offers. And you can also book a free introductory coaching session. It's very simple online. Just go to book a session. All right, let's get back to making friends with anxiety with Anne Bakkes. Yeah, so Anne, so since we had our last um, podcast,
Mm,
I read your thesis that you did for your master's in management coaching,
mm.
and that's where you developed. That's where your walking with anxiety coaching models started or was developed. And I was struck by how you shared your story there, because I realized it was more intense than you shared last time. And the thing that really struck me was the fact that when you were pregnant with your first child and you got cancer, the doctor actually advised you to terminate the pregnancy to save your own life.
Yes,
And you actually decided not to do that. And in your thesis, you said it was an emotional choice, but when we had this conversation earlier, you said no, no, it wasn't emotional. It was a soul choice.
absolutely.
And what do you mean with that? With a soul choice?
I was actually thinking quite a bit about our conversation during the week, and so bringing judgment into it, there was I think we all have these decisions that, from a very internal, very quiet, I call it soulful place, we know that the decision we are making is the appropriate one for the situation you find yourself in.
Hmm. Yeah.
And the judgment, I think, kicks in when you start going out of that place, when you
Uh,
start going into your head, when you
yeah.
start thinking about what's socially acceptable or what other people would expect,
Yeah.
or what people would go like, "Are you crazy?" And then that brings you back to, "Are you trusting your own decisions?" Um, and the judgment around your own decisions, and what if I'm wrong?
Yeah.
You know. And I must say that for most of the time, I it was one of those decisions that I just completely trusted 80% of the time. And then there's obviously the times that I went into complete panic.
Yeah.
Um, when you tell people that you've got cancer, you don't only deal with your fear, you deal with their fear. That's my
Ah,
experience.
yes. Yes, that makes so much sense. And it's like you they pick up on your fear and you up on their fear, and it's you just feed each other's fear.
Yeah, after a while, I stopped telling people, not because I didn't want to share it. It was just I didn't have the emotional capacity to deal with what came up for them.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, and it's not right or wrong what came up for them. It's just where they are and their
It's
judgment
yeah.
on cancer and decisions. And if I say judgment, you know, they might have had a parent or a sibling that died of cancer, or they could just be terrified of the word,
Yes,
you
yeah.
know?
Because of media and what just
Yeah,
their own story about what it means.
absolutely.
Ah, that's fascinating.
So that decision was very much what I call a soul choice. There was a part of me inside that, you know, when you go quiet and you go like, this is what needs to happen.
Yeah.
And it was possibly one of the most difficult decisions I've made in my life.
Yeah.
Um, because
Because
of the complexity and the
yeah.
uncertainty that comes with that.
And because you still had your own judgments, you still had to be in relationship with other people and their anxiety and judgments. So it still it's still yeah, and I guess going through with that decision after you made it, yeah, it takes a lot of courage.
Loads of courage, and um, we'll we'll speak about trust a little bit today, but it's also trusting that you've made the best decision
Mm.
for you.
Yes.
That's the other gift that cancer brought. As I said, the packaging wasn't that
Yeah.
fancy, but that thing that the decisions you need to make, if they are positive and good for you,
Yeah.
they will inevitably be positive and good for the people around you.
And in that decision, there's no certainty of what the outcome is going to be of that decision, right?
No, no, and that's where the trust comes from. I promise you, that was a
Yeah.
roller coaster of note.
Yeah.
Um, and I think what is important to share with the people that listen to this is that I don't have it waxed yet.
Mm,
I
mm,
still
mm.
have days that I sit and I am so anxious. I don't know what to do with myself.
Yeah.
What I do know, however,
Yeah.
is that if I go back to what is it that I'm attached to, what am I judging, and that deep knowing that it's okay to feel this, but not to make my important choices from this place.
Yeah.
Because these choices aren't, they're mostly not healthy when I make them from that space.
Yeah. So if someone is listening to this and they're sitting in exactly the same situation, they're pregnant and they've got cancer and they're feeling super anxious, it doesn't mean, okay, they're supposed not to terminate their pregnancy because that worked for you. It means you need to go and find that soul place and
Yeah.
what
And
is
what's right for you.
yeah.
And I think that's the thing that we often battle with, that you know if it's right for you in your heart and in your soul, whatever
Mm,
that decision is, from buying an ice cream to surviving cancer, as long as you are okay with that,
mm.
um, then there doesn't have to be justification
So if you're okay with that, what do you mean with
with
that?
that decision.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think there's also a part that comes up that says, if you're okay with that decision most of the time, because we are influenced.
yeah,
We
yeah,
are
yeah,
influenced.
yeah.
I think it's rare that you make a decision and you go, I've never looked back. I've never questioned myself. I've never judged the decision I've made.
Mm,
Um, I think that's a bit unrealistic. It is just that if you go through that process, which is, I think, the process of life,
mm,
to come back to, I trust my decision from that quiet soul space where there's truly suspended judgment
yeah,
and just trust in what is.
yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna like just build on what you shared last time. So it starts with something happens in your life. In your case, it was getting cancer, and then panic, anxiety just kicks in.
Mm.
And what most of us do, in general, when we feel anxiety, is we want to get rid of it and or avoid it or numb it or um, and that's what most of us do, right? We
Absolutely. We want to get as far away from it as we can.
so it and
Get it
that
inside.
yeah, yeah. So and I had a conversation with a uh, 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 um now the word is not a psychologist, a psychiatrist.
Mm.
And he just shared with me, just realized how the practice of giving people medication for their anxiety and their depression is actually preventing them from it, because it's another way of not just numbing what your body is telling you something is wrong.
Yeah,
And they never
I
go
think,
through that facing the anxiety actually.
this is a very sensitive topic, I think, for most people. So I'm going to
Yeah.
start by saying it's the way we judge the fact that we experience anxiety and depression that makes it worse. Because
Yeah.
for some way we think we should be different.
Mm,
Um, I don't
mm,
know if we think we should be superwomen all the time or,
yeah.
unaffected. It's not possible to be unaffected by the
Yeah.
world we live in.
Yeah.
So one of the side effects of the world we live in is anxiety.
Yes.
Um, and it's a gift because it tells you something is out of balance in your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
there's a clinical part to it where I think if you are genetically predispositioned to anxiety and depression, if you want to go the medical route, you know, that's up to you. I just
Yeah.
don't think it's a silver bullet for everyone.
Yeah. And that could also be a soul decision.
Absolutely. I mean, again, when you go to back, I think whatever whatever course of action you use, whether it's coaching, whether it's therapy, whether it's medication, all of the above,
Yeah.
it's what place are you making that decision from? Is
Yes.
it a fearful place? Is it a
Yeah.
judgmental place?
Yeah.
I'm supposed to not feel this.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to not behave this. I'm supposed to not have these feelings.
Yeah.
I think that's we place so much pressure on ourselves by judging what we are feeling and by
Mm,
making anxiety weakness because it's a
mm,
strength. It's
yes.
a fantastic gift to tell you, listen, something is out of kilter in your life.
Yeah.
Are you brave enough to look at it and put it back into balance?
Okay. So in your story, you had the anxiety, and then and it just got worse and worse, and then at some point you decided to just turn around and look anxiety in the eye and like, what exactly is it that I'm fearing? And you journaled and you discovered what it was.
Mm,
And it was about your child growing up without a mother.
yes,
Okay. Oh, but we have to go back because you made that soul decision before that.
yes.
So
And that's where the uncertainty comes in.
yeah, yeah,
Because can you see how the two are conflicting?
yeah. So
There's this deep decision to not terminate and believe that I will be alive,
yeah,
and the uncertainty that's a part you can't control.
yeah. So I want to know, and I think this is like crucial, is how do you? Because I think a lot of people will say, how do I get to that soul place? How do I know this is this is my soul decision that this is what the appropriate decision is to make? How do I? Because now the anxiety tells me something's wrong, but you're also saying I can't make the decision from this place of anxiety. It's
Mm,
only something. It's like it's like an alarm going off, but
absolutely.
I have to first switch off the alarm, get kind of quiet, and then make the decision. How do we?
You
How
could not have said that better. That is so beautiful.
how do you switch off the alarm so that you can get to that quiet place
I
to
think the
make?
first thing is I don't think we always have the ability to switch it off. We can put it on snooze. So
Yeah, 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 yeah.
so there's an element that says um, the moment neuroscience teaches us the moment you acknowledge the anxiety you're going through,
Ah,
there's chemicals that gets secreted in your brain that allows you to think.
so that's the neuroscience behind looking the anxiety in the eye.
Yeah. So if you start, and if I say facing it, it means really feeling whatever the feeling is that it is, whether it's shame,
Yeah.
whether it's fear, whether it is anger, whether it is terror,
Mm,
because we all and different things makes us feel different. Um, and where the judgment comes in, if the moment we judge the feeling that we are feeling, it makes it wrong,
mm, mm.
and we're attached to being different. We should be different. We should be
Yes.
unaffected.
Yeah.
We should not be feeling this.
Yeah.
So that true acknowledgement that if I say look it in the eye, I mean find a quiet place and feel that feeling, even if it feels as if it's going to overwhelm you,
Yeah.
if it's going to consume you.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I had to go through is feeling the feeling. And there was another fear that crept in that said, what if I feel this and it consumes me?
Yeah. Yeah. What
And
if I go
I
crazy?
absolutely, and that
Yeah.
was a very real worry for me. And
Yeah.
so
Sure. Yeah.
I sat and I felt it to the best of my chest,
Yeah.
and I stayed alive.
Sure.
And I think we have to look at the signs our body gives us and sit with that intense feeling. Because when we allow that feeling, when we give that feeling permission, then the moment you felt it, it's released for
Yeah.
that period of time. And after the storm is that quiet space where you can say, all right, now that I've felt this,
Yeah.
what now?
Yeah. And then, yeah, is that part of the accepting it process?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the acceptance of the feeling that you're experiencing
Mm.
brings the ability for the brain to start thinking. So what happens is your emotions and your logic then starts forming a healthy dance.
Yeah.
Because often people will say to me in the work that I do, but this is an irrational fear, or this
Yeah.
is an irrational feeling.
So
And the
that's
thing,
another judgment.
yeah, absolutely, I should be feeling something else. So
Yeah. This is
then,
so minor. Why I shouldn't be feeling this way.
yeah,
Yeah. I
and
haven't.
just the acceptance of the feeling, it is what it is. So if we know that we are feeling this, what is it that you're so attached to about this?
Ah.
Because our attachment, our level of attachment to the outcome is absolutely directly proportional to our level of judgment. And
Yes.
that causes intense fear,
Yeah. So
which
if I
stops us
have,
from thinking.
yeah. So if I have to go and do a presentation, and I'm like, oh, I I have to blow this audience away. They have to think I'm so amazing because if they don't, I'm not gonna get any business or I'm not gonna get the proposal approved. And if it doesn't happen, I'm gonna fail and not gonna be in all of that. So we're so attached
Mm.
to that outcome that we go and do this presentation. We're so anxious that we suck. Yeah,
Yeah. And
and yeah,
you said sabotaging the other time. We
yeah,
sabotage ourselves so well
yeah,
because that judgment stops. You see, the judgment limits us. The
yes,
moment you start judging, the only thing you can see is your judgment.
yeah. So
And then we go
here's
into that downward spiral,
yeah, yeah. So
and the accepting stops that.
yeah. So I told you I use a lot of improvisational theater like techniques and kind of philosophy in the work that I do, and I do this one a workshop called the neuroscience of communication, but it's
Mm.
basically helping people get over that fear of connecting to others, whether it is one-on-one with a client or to a group of people. And there's this, um, I don't call it kind of a saying in improvisational theater, which is before you go on stage, because there's always a bit of stage fright, but before you go on stage, it's like you say, okay, let's be average. So it's so counter, you know. And when you say that, it's you let go, you're not so attached to, okay, people, we gotta do the best show ever, and this audience is just have to love us, and it's gonna be amazing, and we're gonna do
It has
this.
to be perfect.
It has to be perfect. It's like, okay, people, let's be average. And then you're not so attached to what needs to happen because you're just gonna. And then because of that, your anxiety is so much lower. You perform so much better. You can connect to each other. You can be creative. You can create together. And then the audience is like, "Oh, that was so amazing."
Absolutely. And I'm sure that that word average is tweaking a few buttons because, there's such
Yes,
the
we
need
have
to be
such.
perfect.
Yes, we have this judgment about the word average. No, 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 no. You can't be average. You have to be acceptable, exceptional. You have to. Everyone has to be exceptional. We all have to be these super people.
And then
And
that's just average.
yes, and then that's not good enough anymore. Then we have to be better and better, and that just creates all this anxiety, anxiety, anxiety. In the end, we suck most of the time.
And what you're saying just reminds me that judgment limits our possibilities.
Mm,
because so whatever it is that you're attached to, I think what is important to remember is you are attached to it.
Yeah.
That it is what it is.
Yeah.
So I'm still attached to being the best mother that I can be, whatever that is,
Mm.
because as I grow and learn, that changes.
Yeah.
And the just the acceptance that I am attached to something already gives the brain the opportunity to be creative
Yeah.
and create possibilities.
Yeah.
As one chooses, you can choose to be less attached to things. But I think for now, until I change, I think for the foreseeable future, I'll be attached to being a good mother.
Yeah.
But just knowing that, I try not to parent from my wounds.
Mm.
You know, I
Yeah.
try to parent from a loving, um, you know, healthy space.
Yes. Yes.
But it doesn't mean those other places doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And I heal them as I go along. I try.
Yeah. And this awareness that when I feel anxious, I can't be the best parent. So I need to find ways. So when this my attachment to being a great parent makes me anxious, and I notice this anxiety, I can say, okay, well, I need to step back now because it's preventing me from what I actually want.
Absolutely.
So it's holding, I always think of this, you hold it lightly. You hold it. It's like, as someone told me once, it's like holding a butterfly. Oh no, he said, you can only hold a butterfly with an open hand.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Yeah. So, and that's like in relationships as well, if you get too attached, if you trying to, and we're going to speak, our next podcast is about love, and maybe we're going to build on this idea, but when you love someone, you can't, it's like holding a butterfly. You can't cry, if you get too attached to it or to the person, you crush the relation. It's got to flourish or grow, but then you have to hold it with an open hand.
Absolutely. And I think the moment you start looking at yourself,
Yeah.
inviting compassion as that butterfly,
Uh,
to be kind to yourself when you're going through tough times.
yes.
Um, and what that practically means is to create, whether you pray, whether you meditate, whether you run, whether you do yoga, whatever it is that you do,
Yeah.
create that safe space for you where you can experience these emotions and hold it lightly.
Yeah.
Because the moment it consumes you and you make decisions from that
Yeah.
desperate place.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that the human being, um, so I wish for no one to go through the journey I've gone on to
Yeah.
really get to know themselves.
Yeah.
There are easier ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if we can suspend our judgment and just see what's there. We may not always like what's there, but then the moment you've discovered it, you can choose to change it or not.
Mm. And what you're saying, suspend your judgment. You're not saying completely get rid of judgment.
No, I think there's discernment that is really, really healthy that
Yeah.
says, you know, um, you look at things and you make a decision seeing what's there, not just the judgment that you feel.
Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me, I went through like a couple of years ago, I was anxious about um, money
Hmm.
because, yeah, I don't know how much detail I want to share, but um, I was anxious and I was making a lot of decisions from a place of anxiety. And in that time, I also received some coaching, and the coach helped me just to discover that, you know, what is it that I have done in the past that helps me to, be calm and connect to that soul place, basically. And I realized this when I'm out in nature and I'm running. But at that time, my judgment was time is because of my belief was time is money. So I don't have time to go and run and, just be quiet in nature. So I was doing, because I was making time for that, I was doing everything out of this anxious place, and
Mm.
the results were really bad. So I then gave myself permission to go run and be quiet in nature in time that I would usually, be seen as work time, because I realized it's so important for me to operate effectively in my work to have those quiet times and to go run in the mountain. And when I started doing that, just run up the mountain, just sit there, I could connect it to what you call that soul place. And from that place, it's like this, all these creativity and ideas come from that place. And there I got these ideas and things that really inspired me and I was excited about. I would come down the mountain, I would take action on those things. And those things really changed my situation. Where the things that I did from this anxious place really didn't, it just snowballed the anxiety actually.
It does. It's exactly that, and it brings that downward spiral.
Yeah, yeah,
And the accepting of what is so liberating. It actually allows, you see, the moment we judge,
yeah,
then no new information can enter your system,
yeah,
your brain, your heart, your family system. So that judgment prevents the possibilities from entering.
yeah,
And the moment that acceptance, like you say, on your run, whatever it is that works for people,
yeah,
um, it invites new information that could result in any possibility.
yeah, yeah,
And that is so powerful. And I've seen that in the work that I do, I've seen it in the workshops that I run, and I've experienced it firsthand.
yeah,
I used to work with a gentleman, and he said to me, and I mean, he doesn't do this work at all. In fact, he's an accountant.
yeah.
And he said to me, the worst decisions I've ever made was out of desperation and fear.
Yes, yes.
And he was speaking from a financial
Yeah,
CFO perspective.
yeah, yeah,
And I thought how beautiful that all worlds align, you
yeah,
know, to that element.
yeah,
Um, and then there's another thing that I think is really important to share,
yeah.
that what if it is okay to be wrong,
Yeah,
and learn from that.
yeah,
I think there's a deep thing, the more I work with people and the more I coach, the more I realize that we're most afraid of finding out who we really are. Because what if I was wrong for 40 years? you know?
yes.
And
Yeah,
there isn't such a thing of being wrong for 40 years. You are who you are, who you are, who got you to where you are now.
yeah,
So sure, there might be elements you want to change,
yeah,
but not all of you could have been wrong for that long, you
yeah.
know?
And it's normal. I mean, we grow and we evolve and we transform, and that means um, being wrong sometimes, and then growing from that. I mean, I spoke. This psychiatrist friend of mine also shared. He's reading this book, Finding Meaning in the Second Half of Life, or something like. It's the title of the book, and it's about, um, you actually find yourself in the second half of life, but before you can find yourself, you first have to lose yourself. So, so, so that's the gift of being wrong. Is now you can be right. And I'm always when I'm at this moment, like, I was wrong about this. So this is how it is. And then I'm always think, I wonder at what stage I'm gonna realize what I'm thinking now is actually wrong, and there's something else that's, you know. But it's that evolution that transcending and including. The w- it's not that this was wrong and now this is right. It's like this this was right and I thought this is what's right, and now I realize, oh, this is right and this is also right. you know. And
And that's what we call growth.
exactly.
That's allowing new information to enter our systems
Yeah. And
in a gentle
actually,
and loving way.
yeah,
It
and
doesn't
then
have to be a traumatic way.
yeah, yeah,
I think what you're also bringing to mind is that we make decisions and we have certain beliefs with certain information.
yeah,
And as we grow and evolve, the information that enters our system is different.
yeah,
It would be really irresponsible not to reevaluate what we think
yes, yeah,
with once we've grown, once we've experienced new things.
yeah,
And what you're saying is so beautiful because what you knew could be right and some, you
yes,
know,
yeah,
or it could have just been inappropriate at the time.
yeah, yeah,
Or it served you up to a point, and now that whatever you've believed has reached its sell-by date,
uh,
and the next thing is
yeah,
ready for you.
yeah, 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 yeah. True, but there's more. That, yeah.
That is so beautiful. It can still be true, and there's more.
Yeah. So I want us to close this
Mm.
episode. And so to make it practical, I think if you're going through, you realize, you've noticed these symptoms of anxiety in your life, to really, you know, it's okay. You don't have to judge it. It's normal. Feel it. Um, Discover what it is, that you're really afraid of. Name it. Name it. And then what is it? And then don't make a decision from that anxious place, but find a way to get to your center, to that calm place. And what is it that's worked for you in the past? What have you done where you felt centered and calm and alive? And now, usually then the judgment comes in like, yes, but I don't have time for that now.
Oh, absolutely. I don't have time. I promise you, if I've had one rand for every time I've heard I don't have time, I would be a millionaire by now.
Yeah,
And it's the quickest way for us to resist. And
yeah.
I really want to bring this into our conversation. When people resist, it's only a manifestation of a true concern.
Yeah, yeah.
People's resistance is only a manifestation of a true concern. They're just maybe not skillful in saying what they're really worried about.
Mm,
So if we can have a little bit of a a step-by-step guide for the people who are listening, I would say the first thing you can do. So please know that this is a recipe. This
yeah,
is not this is not the answer to life. This is what I've experienced. This is what the research says. Use what works for you. Lose what doesn't work for you.
yeah, yeah.
So step one is to accept what is,
Mm,
and to remember that acceptance does not equal agreement.
mm,
Um, to invite trust. So once you've accepted, to invite trust that you have every single thing you need
mm,
inside you and
mm,
around you to make a good decision.
mm,
And to consider that there might be another way of looking at things, not always your way.
mm,
That there might be another way of looking at things.
mm,
And the moment we invite curiosity, we can't be
mm,
afraid.
mm. Yeah,
So, and I'm talking the childlike curiosity,
yeah.
the one that's wide-eyed and open to be surprised.
Yes, yes.
Um, so I'm going to just say that shortly. Try and accept what is right in front of you. Invite trust. Be curious about other options and that there is another way of thinking,
Mm,
and see what that does for you.
mm. Thank you, Anne. And next time, part three, we're going to speak about love and anxiety. And
Yes.
I look forward to that. Thank you, Anne.
Thank you very much for today, and I look forward to our next chat.
Me too. Ciao.
Alrighty.